Hello and welcome to this boss battle spoilercast for Rogue One. So just to reiterate, if you haven't seen Rogue One yet, it's best to stop listening at this point and then revisit once you have. So we're going to discuss it in depth, and we are, as I say, going to
be fair, Chris, that sounds really good. That's what you should do on the recording.
Who's recording?
Right, with me to my left is the irreplaceable Adam.
Hello.
We actually have a newbie to the podcast who regular listeners will have heard before because he's recorded a few jingles for us. So next to Adam is Gareth.
Salut! Hello everyone. It's great to be here.
We also have regular presenter James.
Hello.
And finally Carl.
Last but not least, of course.
Well, I'm
Who
Matt.
also won the quiz.
Yeah!
Yeah.
And I'm Chris, and I'm not bitter at all.
You call Adam 7 cans Bennett for the purpose of this one.
I've had...
Yes.
7?
It's the first
If it's
6 pack you've had in a while, isn't it?
Is it 9? Oh, it's close.
Okay, there you go. So firstly, let's start with Adam while he's still slightly sober. What was your initial reaction?
Not any way, shape or form.
So you've seen it most recently because you've seen it today, whereas
Yeah,
whereas
I
last
saw it at
week,
half 12 today.
So what was your initial... So as you came, thinking back to earlier today, as you came out of cinema, what was your initial verdict, initial reaction?
That was very average.
Okay. Do you want to expand on that?
The first sort of...
No.
no. The first hour into the film, I thought was very slow. Took a lot of time to build up, to the point where me and my girlfriend were literally leaning on each other, sort of nearly falling asleep.
That's what we were doing.
Yeah, no, that was what I was doing.
If you're going to sit in the back row, you would do like that.
PG-13, please. PG-13.
I thought that it was very slow to start, and when the action did get going, it wasn't brilliant. It didn't, to me, feel like... Well, obviously set in the Star Wars universe,
Yeah.
but it didn't feel like a Star Wars film. Like, Star Wars in general, to me, holds my attention all the way through.
Okay.
And it...
Even with Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, I don't like Jar Jar Binks.
Reason I like this
I like
film.
his
I
ears.
can't sound surprised.
Jar Jar... No, I can't do anything.
Well, just on that point, it'd be really interesting. So that's a really good point you made. You didn't feel like it was sort of honourable to the Star Wars universe. So I'm going to bring in Gaz at this point, because Gaz, for
Hang
those
on,
that don't know...
before you bring Gaz, because
Go
I
on.
haven't finished yet.
All right.
I didn't...
He's had 8 cans and he's kicking off here.
9 cans, he said.
9.
I sort of, obviously, with the previous 3, you sort of know where it's going.
Right.
So whether that was the reason why it wasn't as such a good a film as the previous one, whether that was the reason why, but I just didn't really enjoy it. It's hard to explain. I did enjoy it and I didn't enjoy it. It was a good film in its own right, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And whether I went in with too much expectation, that might have been the problem.
Okay. Well, the reviews were quite strong, so that could have contributed to that,
The
couldn't
reviews
it?
are really strong.
Yeah.
Very strong. And
So-
I mean, even not reviews, even people who have just seen it on Facebook and have said
Social
it's
media.
amazing. Yeah.
So I want to bring in Gaz on at this point. Well, one, because he's next logically now, but also because he's actually the biggest Star Wars fan of us all. So you've not read the books, and you're really a big fan. So what did you think?
Yeah, I loved it also. I used to read the comics and the books and everything, so even though none of that actually counts anymore, the whole expanded universe that they did, I really did feel like it was like one of the old Star Wars films.
I'd like to add at this point, Gaz is paid by George Lucas to...
George
No,
Lucas
Mickey
did
Mouse.
direct it, didn't he?
Yeah, Mickey Mouse pays
that
my
means
wages.
you sold
Mickey Mouse
out.
pays the rights,
It did, because I watched A New Hope actually not that long ago, and that takes ages to get going. And I know what you mean. It did take a little while, but I didn't feel bored. I don't know, maybe you were half asleep or something, I don't know. But I honestly, it kept me gripped. The only thing I didn't like about it actually was I thought the end dragged out quite well.
This is
I
a
don't
spoiler
know,
cast, so you can spoil whatever you like.
I don't know whether... What annoyed was, there was no such Jedi, apart from the blind guy.
There's not going to be.
That's
Who's
the
half
point of
Jedi.
it.
to be like that.
Yeah.
But if you
I
bear in
know
mind,
there wasn't meant to be, but it was
you don't have
that...
to shout in the microphones.
It was that ability that sort of... I don't know whether that dragged my attention away or whether...
So you wanted more of the Force.
Yeah.
But the whole point of this film is that it's based in the world where the Jedi have all but died out, and the Force is considered to be, almost gone. And Obi-Wan Kenobi's one of the last, isn't he? And
Just lingering.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
and Darth Vader is so special because he's, he uses the dark side.
You only saw him for the last 15 minutes of the film.
Yeah,
It wasn't
I think that was
Darth
that
Vader,
was
is he?
to the point.
He's as much a cameo as Leia is at the end.
Yeah.
You know, that's.
I just found myself sort of. I mean, I did 2 toilet breaks. I normally don't do any toilet breaks.
Adam doesn't rate films by stars; he rates them by toilet breaks.
No,
Did you
I
not
did
take
two-
your Potter?
I did 2 toilet breaks, and I just didn't. I didn't find myself that engaged. Towards the end of the film, yeah, I did. The last 45 minutes, I thought it was really good. And as all you guys know, I love my action. I love my bang bang, shooting, people dying, fast stuff flying around. Brilliant.
Did you not like the bit with Yoda in it? Oh, that must have been on the toilet break.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in and defend Adam then, because I also came out and said to you all, we all saw it together, and I said to you, I was the only one who came out and said anything other than brilliant, I think. And I was the same, I was bored halfway through. But I don't know if it's for the same reasons that you were bored. We talked about it on the podcast a second ago, the episode 8. I think it was because I knew what was coming. It was the prequel mentality.
I can
very
understand
much.
that.
To me, I really struggle to get invested in a story if it doesn't.
If you know the outcome.
If I know where it's going, and if I know what's going to happen, I can't.
They spent
get
an
as
hour,
excited.
45 minutes building up characters, storylines that you knew before even all that started was ultimately going to die.
Well, no, you
Because they-
didn't know.
No, you didn't know that. I disagree
You
with
didn't
that.
know that.
And saying that, you did know that because you've seen 5, 6 and 7.
No,
No,
but
but you knew what they were
could have
doing.
gone off, into
You didn't know they were gonna
peaceful
die?
time.
You
Yeah,
didn't know,
but-
you didn't know that you might. I think it would have been acceptable to have seen a couple of them die. They'd come out of it completely clean. You'd have questioned it.
Yeah.
But I didn't realise they were all going to die.
There's
There's no mention of their
but-
death.
I
in
didn't
the
expect
film.
that.
What I mean is, though, they're not characters that you knew were going to continue into the universe.
But they don't.
Yeah, but
they
that's
do
what
need
made it
to-
Doesn't mean
interesting
that
for
you're
me.
gonna
They
die.
need to be in because the core story of the first 3 films, A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back and Jedi, is it's Luke. It's not about Rogue One's journey
Oh, yeah,
or
no.
someone's journey. They could have been alive and just
I think
fighting the good fight sort of thing. It wouldn't have mattered. They don't have to be key
maybe I
players.
went into it expecting too much because I love.
I
It
was
was
the same.
hyped. It was.
I loved
hyped.
4,
was
5, and
hyped. It was
6. 1, 2, and 3. I could, they were good films. 4, 5, and 6. I loved to bits. The last one was absolutely brilliant. Loved the whole Han Solo thing and all that sort of stuff going on. This one, I just went in expecting.
Yeah.
I'm with you though.
Maybe.
I thoroughly enjoyed Force Awakens last year. I think that was for a couple of reasons. I think one because it was Star Wars for the first time in God knows how long, and a good one. And I think it was a new story. So again, the prequels.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed the original prequels, the story element more than this last film. Although I think there's a lot about Rogue One that's way better than the new trilogy. But I liked not knowing so much about the new trilogy. I think this was so close to A New Hope. You just kind of knew what was coming.
Yeah.
You knew where the next step was. Well, they've got to get the plans. So they don't get the plans.
Yeah,
then
because they've got the
New Hope
plans
can't
in
happen.
4 anyway.
So all of that, I think any of the suspension around will they, won't they? You're like, well, it doesn't really matter how tense they make this bit about getting the hard drive out of this tower is. They're going to get it because they have to get it.
The
in.
good guys are going to win, but it's how they
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
I think ultimately it felt like a filler, didn't it? That something that you didn't need filler with something that was like a 30-year-old film.
I also think that the Han Solo movie that's in the works could be something similar if they try to tie that too close to the universe. The best thing they could do with the Han Solo movie is go off on a complete tangent.
Yeah, completely prequel before he met
Somewhere else
anyone.
completely different to what.
Hopefully it's back when he's in the military academy
But
because
then-
he was with the Imperial
But
Academy.
then who do they get to play him? Because
They've already cast him, so.
oh,
Yeah.
they have
Yeah,
actually
they have
cast him.
cast him,
I was about to say because
And they've cast
on another tangent of there was 2 people in.
No. Oh, bollocks, what's his name?
Oh,
shit.
Lando Calrissian.
Lando
Yeah,
Calrissian been
yeah.
cast as
Look,
well.
what I was saying is obviously there's 2 parts to Rogue One that I didn't like was the 2 CGI characters. You've got the Death Star base guy and
Moff Tarkin.
Carrie Fisher, ironically, at the end. And I thought the CGI characters, especially this day and age, were awful.
Well, I read about that today because I don't know what I stumbled across an article, and apparently what they had to do that was so complicated to try and recreate the right look and feel and to get those people looking right. I don't think they weren't a million miles off. I just don't think technology's there yet to recreate a human.
I just thought it was really obvious.
to look
For something
so
that shouldn't be that
realistic.
if you watch a
obvious.
video
Really obvious.
game piece of CG,
You know it's CGI.
the whole thing is CG,
Yeah.
so you don't read into it. The problem is when they try and put CG, when they try and go for absolute
real shot
reality
and then-
next to actual reality,
Yeah.
I think it's too obvious. So the worst bits were when that guy was interacting with the actual actor. Because you're like, well, he looks clearly like a human, and he doesn't look like a human.
Yeah, and that kind of took me away from it a bit.
Yeah, it completely took me away. I think that was my biggest complaint walking out, wasn't it? I said to you, can't stand the fact they've CGI'd that guy in, and he was in it so much. If they'd just done it once, as a sort of clever fan throwback, I'd have gone, oh, well, fair enough, I get it. But he kept coming up, and I'm like, just get rid of him. He just looks
When
really
it was first
unrealistic.
introduced, a lot of it was the back of his head, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I'd have been happy if it was just the back of his head.
To be honest, I think it's testament for me to how good the plot was that it didn't distract me in the slightest. That it didn't bother me. It was only when you guys put it. Well, I knew obviously because of the age of the actor and all that sort of stuff that it must have been.
But lads, you didn't look at him and think.
Can I suggest we went to
me.
Gareth's view on the film because we sort of.
Yeah.
We've sort of bypassed what Gareth was saying a little bit.
You don't have to go point by point. We're adding the points as we go. So.
The only thing I'd say is, having read all the books and everything that went on before, I felt completely mugged when they said, look, none of that counts anymore, we're going to do everything again from scratch. And it took me a long time to get over that and to accept that. So for me, finding out what they wanted to do now, in between the movies and filling in, I thought was really good. I was really eager to see it, and I didn't feel let down. And I really liked the fact that it actually led straight into A New Hope. Like, I didn't expect that at all.
I didn't know
that was coming.
Directly.
And I thought, oh, brilliant, that's great. And they really have done it.
They had to, though, because they basically made a movie out of the
the
New Hope's opening scrolling text.
But I only knew that after
the whole film is based on that little bit of scrolling text.
Well,
I've since learned that. But the thing is, if you avoid spoilers,
I know, but I deliberately
avoided anything related to this film.
I read this afterwards.
Yeah,
okay.
But the whole film is spun out of a few lines that are referenced in that opening credits, where it says Rogue One have captured the Death Star plans, and now here's Princess Leia. That's kind of how the New Hope starts, and that's where they're.
There was no scrolling text at the beginning. Of that.
No, that's what annoyed me.
Yeah,
I was expecting the whole. Oh, that's supposed to be Star Wars music.
Jazz.
That's the musical one in the group.
But do you know what I mean? I expected that to start with, and then it zoomed into that planet.
Yeah.
And,
I think they'll learn from that. I think they'll get feedback. That
I turned to you and where the hell's the scroll?
That's one thing I had heard that they'd not done.
You want that little bit of backstory to what's going on with the film.
I don't give a fuck about what it says. I just want it.
Yeah.
That's his Star Wars.
Happy Christmas, everybody!
That's like Jurassic Park and taking the dinosaurs out. To me, that's Star Wars. You know, if you show anyone scrolling text that goes like that, they go Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's synonymous. So to take that out of a Star Wars movie, just
destroyed it. Nah, destroyed
to
it.
Differentiate
I said that exactly to Gary. I was like, oh, here comes the scrolling. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I felt like that. I mean, if they're going to do that for the,
didn't I?
Yeah. I was disappointed with that as well. But I think, well, if they're going to keep doing that for the films that aren't, you know, the numbered films, if these are the back, then all right, fine, that's something to differentiate.
I think they'll do it.
But I honestly, I was expecting it. I was totally expecting it.
As the new three, where they all scroll in text.
They're
not necessarily in the sequence. It doesn't.
I'm pretty certain
it
reaction will be
needed scrolling text.
It'll definitely be.
And I want it to be gold. And I want it to be on the black, starry background.
And then he goes into the stars, and they come down to a planet. And they tell me a story.
And then I would have enjoyed the film. That's rated for me.
Even the games, I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
Lego games had it.
What did you guys think about the characters? Bearing in mind, there's so many that we've never even.
We said this earlier, the previous.
Yeah, you missed this.
Yeah.
Who was your favourite character, Carl?
No.
Well, no, we'll ask Gaz. We know Gaz.
Who was your favourite character in the film?
Ooh, well, the robot. I'm assuming everyone's going to say the droid.
No, James didn't like the robot.
No.
I hate the robot.
Everyone else said the
Really?
robot.
Everyone said the robot
The
except James.
droid was brilliant.
Yeah,
I love the droid.
I picked the blind guy.
He was my second.
He was.
But
I'll
he
tell you why I
was
don't
the
like
only
the
one
robot.
with any kind of Jedi powers. But don't you think that it's bad that a film that's got all those actors in, a droid is the best character?
Not
You was the
necessarily.
Because he was the comedic effect.
But I didn't like
Donnie
him because I thought he was
over the
too
top.
clever.
Yeah, a
For a
droid.
robot, I was like, actually, he's a bit too sarcastic, a bit too witty.
I did.
I was like, oh.
I thought the exact same thing. I thought a robot shouldn't be able to have these responses. But at the same time, he was a great character.
Because C-3PO is exactly the same.
C-3PO's
No, he's
And
not.
they had a cameo.
He's not. Because he makes
C-3PO is not
stupid
sarcastic
mistakes
and
and stuff. And he doesn't.
But R2 kind of, I know it's transcribed from the person sat repeating back what R2 says, but R2's quite
R2 could be a little
isn't he?
fitting.
Yeah.
I just think that he was just a bit too amazing. And then what really annoyed me was at the end when he was defending them while they were trying to get the hard drive, and they gave him a pistol at that point, and suddenly he's like shit hot at shooting people.
Yeah, well, that's
and he's holding off an army. And you're like, why didn't you give him the bigger gun or a couple of guns earlier in the film? And this whole thing could have been avoided. You could have made his life so much easier if just giving him a gun. Because he's just nailed everything.
Oh, Starship.
Like he was nothing.
Just stop.
Yeah, I just thought, and then I don't know. I just thought he was a bit too good at everything, a bit too overpowered. C-3PO is funny because he's kind of useless. He kind of walks around with stiff arms, and stiff legs.
So's R2D2.
But he only gets that good towards the end of the film. Yeah, he's sarcastic a lot of the times before that.
Droid, but the droid, he's nimble all the way through, and he's the first thing you see of him is when he clotheslines
Yeah, and he puts it
girl,
on there.
yeah, he knocks her out and then pins her on and slams her on the ground.
Yeah.
He doesn't just
doesn't
clothesline.
necessarily make him nimble.
Would you see C-3PO doing that? Or R2-D2?
Well, no, obviously, but
Exactly.
C-3PO is different.
So he's more nimble than any of the droids we've seen up to now. If you go back to the first
He's
films,
quicker than any human. You show me a human,
Yeah.
it's going
Well, he's a robot, so you can kind of give him the speed thing. But look at the robots, the clone
That's
army.
how
They were all shit.
yeah.
You know, those guys were useless. They could barely walk with a gun.
Oh no, here's a big
That's
rolling thing.
I just thought, I don't know. I didn't enjoy him. I know everybody else loved him, and he was the big talking point for a lot of people. But I kind of came out feeling annoyed by him. I only liked him at the end when he died, and not because he died. I appreciated
James
the sort
didn't
of,
shed a tear.
I appreciated the last stand. You know, I liked that last bit of relationship with the girl, whose name escapes me.
Ray?
No, it's not
Juno,
Ray.
sorry.
Juno.
Ray was the last
But I
one,
thought,
wasn't it?
yeah,
Last
Ray was
film.
the last film. That's what I
Oh,
thought.
sorry, yeah.
But I found him throughout the rest of the film. He just annoyed the tits off me. I think my biggest disappointment with it all, character-wise, and I think this is why the halfway point became the boring point for me, when they killed Mads Mikkelsen's character. Because for me, he was the point of the film. I wanted to know more about why is he in there, what's he done, what's the last how many years been like, how has he built this thing, and why is it only now he's coming out? And you never get any of that explained. They just kill him.
Yeah.
And then she goes, "Oh, Dad," and the usual cheesy thing. And that's it.
They'll probably save that for a book or something.
Yeah,
I don't
They
read a
do
book.
think
No, listen,
but they will.
we're forgetting that. It's going to be another 2 more, isn't there?
No.
Between them. I thought they was doing one,
Rogue
then one,
One.
then one.
There's the Rogue One story is an independent, isolated
Yeah,
film.
but I thought they was doing then I thought there's 6 films in total.
I think they are. I think they are doing
loads.
another 2 because
Yeah.
they're doing
No, they're doing a Han
Those are
Solo
gonna be-
movie. So the next film is 8.
Yeah, but that
which is
might
next Christmas.
that might come. Yeah, but the next one follows on from the one that we saw 2 years ago with Ray's
I
story.
don't think they're following on. They're just going to be completely
the
separate.
Rogue One story
That's
and
what I
Han
said.
Solo are complete separate
Yeah.
But
stories.
then the
different
one,
timelines.
yeah, but what I'm saying is though, the one after that could be another
Will be-
Rogue
no, the
One.
one after that will be 9, which will be the follow-on to 8.
So they're not like sort of
There won't
doing
be
one
two-
then one
like
then
Rogue
one.
One literally follows into New Hope, as Gas said. They literally goes. The most recent one goes into the very first Star Wars film, and that's it. That's the timeline done.
See, but that leaves so much unsaid and.
Yeah, they can explore that in the future.
Weirdly though, I must admit, I had the opposite reaction to the Mads Mikkelsen's character going. I had the same reaction in terms of I was intrigued by his story, but for me, that's why I think I enjoyed it so much, because I thought he was going to be the centre point of the film, having seen the brief bits of trailer, and that's what I liked about it. Is actually there was loads in the film for me I didn't have a clue was coming. I know you what you meant about the end leading to New Hope, but. It was complete. All of it was pretty much a clean palette for me, going as a viewer. So I really enjoyed it.
He gets killed by friendly fire as well, though. He's
Yeah.
not even struck down in a depressing sort of really. Oh my God, no, not Darth Vader, or not the general guy shooting him at point blank range. He's shot by friendly
But
fire.
then I think it was pretty obvious he was going to die at some point.
Oh yeah, he had to die,
Yeah.
and I get that. But I just felt like when it happened, it was like halfway through the film. It didn't really. That was what I thought the story was about. It was about her finding him, finding out why. You know, that would have been the story. The second half of the film, getting the plans to the Death Star. Well, we knew that was going to happen because it had to happen. So that, for me, then I was like, well, I don't really get what I'm watching now. I'm just waiting for them
The
to
best
see
thing about the film,
how they
I
do
thought, as I said earlier, and the other things, was it followed on to the other Star Wars films. So the technology was the same, the ships were the same. It wasn't like the first 3 films that we did with Anakin, where they had these super shiny ships and all this technology flying around everywhere. It felt like the 4, 5, and 6 films.
the definitely look and feel was great.
The continuity was there.
I agree with you though. I said I don't. All I've said is negative things.
It's not a bad. It's not
I
a
don't
bad
think
film.
it's a bad film. I enjoyed the film. It's
just not what was
It
expected.
wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
I think it was probably overhyped.
It was it's still the prequel thing for me. I think just not. I can't get excited about a story that doesn't really grip me. And halfway through that film, what was gripping me about the story fell flat.
I think
That was just for me. I was like,
for me it was the same as the last Star Trek film. I love Star Trek to bits,
that was fucking
and
awful.
it just
That was
didn't.
terrible.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that I went in with high expectations of, Star Trek's gonna be brilliant. It's gonna follow on from all these, and just didn't deliver. And that's what I got.
No, it was a complete reboot. That's why it was never.
As soon as they pulled out Beastie Boys to defeat the bad guy, so spoiler cast for a different film.
But that's
we're
what
never going to do it.
But that's what I feel like. It's not. I didn't come out thinking it was a. I didn't come out thinking it was a Star Wars film. That's what I said to Kate, and Katie said the exact same thing. She was like, "I could have spent 2 hours shopping. She would have had more fun. She could have had more fun."
With
Do you know
Star
what it is?
Wars, though, I know what you mean. It's a film set in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Rather than what you'd necessarily traditionally call a
definitely.
Star Wars film.
I mean,
But that's what they wanted. They were trying to make.
I thought that's.
Yeah.
But I
They
never
were trying to make
expected
a
that,
war film.
Yeah.
They were trying to make, weren't they? Really? That was the theme of it.
Yeah.
A war film, which is why at the end they all had the poignant
Where-
moments, they die.
Yeah.
and it's all
Yeah.
like-
with the amount of hype it had, you expected sort of the others with the Jedi's and the skills, the fighting skills,
that
all
was
this sort of stuff. And because that wasn't
They
there,
purposely-
If you read sort of, so I read
I know they purposely avoided that, but because that wasn't there, it didn't feel like a Star Wars film.
I know what you mean, but I read because I deliberately avoided reading reviews prior to seeing it because they kind of ruin it for you a little bit, don't they? But I've read
I
some
looked at numbers,
since,
that was all.
and what I still think it was slightly over the top in terms of the ratings. They get a lot of them get like 5-star ratings,
I didn't get
but.
9 out of 10, which
But
felt high to me.
having read the reviews, I think the reason a lot of these critics kind of gave it such good reviews, one because it was faithful to the Star Wars universe, but at the same time being different. So it didn't have the Jedi as the basis, but it still felt like it
I
had
think the big
traditions.
mistake
So that's why I think they
they made was
reviewed
making
well.
it a prequel. I think it should have been a standalone sort of film.
Couldn't be. It
It-
can't be.
yeah,
It can't be.
it's always
going
gonna
to
be-
Yeah, but where they got the plans with knowing what
It's
was going
called a
ahead,
Star Wars
didn't
story, but
sort
I know
of
what you mean.
follow
It does-
on to it.
Yeah, they could have told another story in the Star Wars universe that didn't necessarily link directly into
Yeah, that's what
the
I mean.
film
Yeah,
franchise.
yeah.
Perhaps they could have done that, tying it in so close at the end.
Yeah,
Make-
that's
makes
what I
it
mean.
a
Like the
prequel.
plans and all that, they could have tied all that in,
Yeah,
but not necessarily said this is the one before that one.
yeah,
you
because
know
I think
what I mean.
bringing Lair in at the end, which is another topic altogether, does force that, doesn't it? It makes you realise, okay, well, there's actually that. I guess the question is, could you have watched that film in isolation and got the same level of enjoyment out of it? If you'd never seen a Star Wars film and that was the first one you watched,
Yeah.
would that have been as good?
No,
As
you
maybe
had
felt. I
no
think it
idea
was.
what was going on.
You think you'd have enjoyed it more
Yeah.
or as much if you didn't
I
know
think-
Star Wars?
I
I
think-
don't think you'd have any
So
idea what was
I
going
think
on.
half of the stuff that happened in that film requires you to know something
Yeah.
about Star Wars.
To a certain extent, yeah.
They were assuming
still
that
think
you've
I'd
watched. They were assuming
I
you've
think, yeah,
watched
I'm
the other
not
7
saying you
films.
would enjoy it. I'm saying, would you have?
I probably wouldn't have
Would it-
gone
would
as
it have been
much
as
of it,
good?
but I would have enjoyed it.
Be interesting to put someone who's never watched a Star Wars film. in
Yeah.
front of
Can
that.
I say, like the last one obviously was really, what was it? Last Hope, was it?
Force Awakens.
For Force Awakens, the last one. That was the first film that Erin's seen, who's my daughter, as the first Star Wars film she's seen. She was 8 at the time. She came out hating it. She had no idea what was going on.
It's quite dark for a child, though, wasn't
But-
it, as well?
I think Star
what-
Wars is
what-
quite difficult for a
But,
child.
but
Anyway.
what I mean is, if you like James, the point James was saying is, if you haven't seen 4, 5, and 6, and then 1, 2, and 3 beforehand, it wouldn't have made much sense. So she's come in and seen that last one, not knowing half of what was going on in that film.
I think if you could wipe your mind clean, would watching those films in chronological order make the experience better or worse? I don't think you'd benefit as much. I think a lot of the new trilogy requires you to know about the old trilogy.
And then they're assuming that you're going to take 4, 5, and 6 as being made back then, so the technology wasn't as good, so the ships aren't as good, the graphics aren't as good.
I don't mean so much about the visual. I'm talking storyline now.
But-
Purely
but-
talking storyline.
But even like if you say if you're a child now, say you're a little one when she's like 6 or 7, she watches 1, 2, and 3,
No,
then
she
watches.
Should be watching them in the release order.
Yeah, but if she did watch 1, 2, and 3, then the one they've just done, then 4, 5, and 6, would she sit there again? That's a bit weird. Why did they bet?
Well, the thing is, if you think about it, if you were to watch, this is like a topic from Rogue One, but if you were to watch 1, 2, and 3, having never seen the others, when number 4 starts and you go, oh, it's Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader's his dad, you instantly know.
Yeah.
Like, so like Empire Strikes Back,
Yeah.
it's spoiled.
It ruins it, doesn't it?
I
No
think
reveal.
as well for our generation, going on that sort of subject, I think it's different because when we were kids, the technology wasn't there as a standard in movies, so it did fire your imagination, didn't it? It's the whole space thing for a start as well, and
I still
everything
love that,
about
though.
it.
I still thought
But
that was
a
great.
child growing up now, to me, that it wouldn't have anywhere near the same impact because of technology and where it is now. It's just different, isn't it?
But space is still something that's unexplored. It's still fantasy. It's still...
I just think there's the difference
See, there was-
because of where we were.
There was a
when
guy
we were
behind
kids.
us at the cinema. So he's going back to like the whole cinema experience, how much fun it can be actually going to the cinema to watch these films rather than sitting in your living room. The guy behind me was 45, like 50 odd, doing that sort of stuff with his girlfriend, the wife probably, and was going absolutely mad. Everything Star Wars, the camera was like, oh, Star Wars! And there was like clapping and stuff. And that, I suppose that might be the difference in that that's their generation. That is it's their story, isn't it?
Well, it kind of
That's what
spans
they
2
had.
generations to a certain extent, doesn't it? Because of
Because
the
of the
old
new
ones and the
trilogy,
new
yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a lot. I mean, like when the 80s wandered in towards the end, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, the AT-AT.
That was the best bit, that
That's-
beach battle, when that
Yeah.
started kicking off and you had all those the old sort of stuff coming in from that was when he started.
Technically, for Gaz's benefit, they were ACTs, weren't they?
ATST.
I'm assuming you knew that. No, they were ACTs.
And I felt really sorry for that pilot who
You
ended
should know this guy.
I thought they were AT-ATs.
for the
AT-ACT.
for the pilot who ended up getting grenaded.
The toys.
It was the worst
You
person
know
to die. It was. I felt really sorry for him.
What's
The
that?
fact you know it from the
When-
toys.
The
I
guy,
know from YouTube.
the guy at the end who gets grenaded, the pilot.
Oh yeah,
I felt really bad for him because he was like,
Yeah,
he did
yeah,
all
yeah.
the stuff. This grenade comes in, and he's just like.
I think his
"Oh."
death was probably the worst, wasn't it?
I thought something was going to happen with him. I thought he'd be referenced later in the books and comics,
Yeah.
you know, as part of the Rogue Squadron.
I think that was one of the worst things. I said to James earlier, half an hour, built 45 minutes building up all these backstories, all these characters, and all just to fucking die.
Well, they didn't really have a backstory. I think Jin was probably the only one that had a real backstory.
Yeah, everybody else.
I think
Just,
everyone else didn't really
their
have a
stories
backstory to a
unfolded as
certain
the film
extent.
unfolded,
Yeah.
didn't they?
There were just people who kind of tagged on because they didn't
I
really
think
have
I
much of a
wanted
choice.
more from Jin's backstory as well. That's why I think I was a bit disappointed when they killed the dad off, because nothing really got filled
And
in or
even
explained. You were
Forrest
like, oh.
Whitaker's character as well, when they killed him off, there
Yeah.
wasn't really any backstory for him either. It was just a case of he rescued her when she was little, and then he's a bit more deranged and he's got a bit more metal attached to him, and then he's dead.
He was a cool robotic hybrid, though, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Quite cool.
He was. I mean, I like him as an actor. And he's
He's
a cool bloke. But I did find it a little bit strange that they did so little with him. That's what I mean. From that point when Jyn Erso is a kid and she's rescued to when she's grown up, they filled very little of that in.
Yeah.
And that's where I think I expected the Mads Mikkelsen character to come in. I thought he was gonna. I thought something would happen. I mean, I fully expected him to die, probably some tortured. I expected something quite heroic in a way, but he just, getting friendly fire felt a little bit cheap. It was kind
I
of
suppose
like,
his heroic act
he's
was
dead.
said in the
yeah, of course it was. But I just thought when he gets discovered as the guy and he kind of puts his hand up and says, "Oh, it's me," and they butcher all of his team anyway. I thought, right now something big's going to happen here. Jin's going to come in, someone's going to get captured. We're going to find out what's been going on, and then boom, bomb falls down. He's dead. That's it.
Yeah.
And I thought, I just wanted something more from that storyline. I wasn't because I knew that ultimately they had to get the Death Star plans. That was a given for me. So what I was invested in was their character story, and they killed that they literally killed it dead after the film. And then it became all about, like you said, that attack on fetching that hard drive plans. And there wasn't really, you think about it, a great deal of unknowns that happened there, other than the characters themselves dying in various ways. And you kind of start, and you see them coming as well, I think, don't you? I mean, the guy with the big backpack and the gun, and the blind guy who were a little tag team, you kind of see their death coming. It's like, okay, well, they're going to go now.
Yeah.
Because there's no way they can survive this. And I didn't like that because they were my two favourites, really. But
I knew I knew the blind guy was going to die because he gave it away in a press conference.
I did.
Our open press conference earlier in the year, he blurted it out, and everyone just carried on talking. But of course, it got reported. It's no one mentioned it ever again. But
I would like to
I knew that was coming.
I read nothing about this for a change, and that served me well on The Force Awakens, whereas actually I think I almost might benefit from knowing a bit more about this going in. I might not have been as disappointed coming out then, because I was expecting something as sort of epic as the progression was in Force Awakens. Like, I can't wait to see the Luke stuff unfold. What's Rey's backstory? Is Han Solo really dead? What's Kylo Ren's future? I'm assuming he's dead. I haven't heard anything about him filming, and then obviously I guess the big news now is, as of today, Carrie Fisher's dead.
Yeah.
How does that now affect things? Because I know she'd finished. Well, they said she'd finished shooting Star Wars 8. Has that been the title yet?
I don't think so. Not that I've heard.
So I know she's now dead. Obviously, which is tragic. I've got you to hear that 2016's been a shit year. But how does that now affect the story? Was her character going to die in 8 anyway, and therefore,
hopefully,
from a story point of view, does it matter, or is she now going to have to be spun up as CGI again, like they did for
the end of
her at the end of that one? Will they do it?
It'll be interesting. I don't know. I think they'll do something.
It's difficult, isn't it?
They'll do something respectful, whatever it is. I'm sure they will, but I wouldn't want to see the CGI thing again. I think going back to that very, very briefly, I'd have been more than happy for them to have a Peter Cushing lookalike. I don't know why they had to do. You've had it with other characters like Mon Mothma, who's the woman in the white, who's the Republic. Obviously, they would cast someone different because so much time has passed since the
Yeah.
originals. They got somebody who just
Yeah.
looks like her. I'd have been more than happy for them to do that.
In this
Have
day and
somebody
age,
just
just get
really
actors
look
that
like
can
him.
impersonate
Yeah.
as well.
And
Yeah,
the delay
exactly.
at the end, the thing I felt that was entirely necessary to turn her around.
Yeah, it was.
They
Yeah.
could have just shown the back of her in the cloak.
Yeah.
With the
I'd have gone
buns.
Leia,
Yeah,
and that could have been a fan nod. Did she need to turn around and be CGI
No,
face?
she didn't.
No.
Well, look
No.
at
Definitely not.
Paul Walker in the Fast and Furious. You can't tell the difference really between him and his brother in the parts
But
of
that's
the
slightly
CGI.
different because it's
Yeah.
not. I mean, this was a
That was that
close
action shot.
turning shot where they basically just put Paul Walker's face onto his brother's body. But they did that for those two. Those two characters, by the way, were completely acted. They had someone in full outfit and everything doing
Yeah.
those roles,
Yeah.
and then they remapped their facial movements to that of the characters.
Right.
Is what I'd read, and apparently they had a right game with Tarkin because the lighting apparently in the previous Star Wars films was very different to the lighting they'd used in this.
Yeah.
Therefore, getting the right levels of detail on his face and the textures and stuff was a real nightmare. And I mean, I thought it would look quite good, but I still think there's something missing. And I drew the comparison to the Jim Carrey animated film. What was the Christmas?
The Christmas
Carol.
one.
Christmas Carol, where it's
Now I
obviously
get it
all
right,
that's
Carl.
fully animated.
Yeah.
But there's something, because they go for a hyper realistic look, there's something dead about a CGI person. They don't have the
Yeah.
life in the eyes
Yeah.
that a real person has. And when you put the two side by side, it's so obvious. You know, like separate, I don't think you buy it because your mind kind of says, I know it's not real, but I'll just accept it. Whereas when you're watching real people and then you see that CGI, your brain goes, ooh, that ain't right. He looks dead.
No,
What's going on there?
it's true.
I thought visually, his character, like, you know, sometimes green screen and stuff can look really obvious. I don't think that was the case. I thought his character looked for all the world like that person was there.
Yeah.
It was just the fact that it was meant to be human, and I think that's the problem. CGI has been great at making monsters, but since you've got to try and make a real person, we all know what
Exactly.
a real person looks like.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. And I found that
Put
really
all the
off-putting.
definitions you like on there, you're going to see.
Yeah, I just thought I think you could spend millions of pounds and hours on rendering and whatever else, making that level of detail, and I don't think you'll ever get to the point where it looks convincingly human next to a real human. On his own, you might never have asked a question, but
No, you wouldn't.
talking to a real person, you get all the eye lines and stuff that you want right with the real person who's there. I still don't think it works. And that, I really hate it.
I think we've got quite a good breadth of sort of plus points and negative points there between the group, which we expected when we sort
I
of
think we
initially
spend more time
discussed
slamming it than we have actually bigging it up.
So let's go around the table and sort of briefly summarise your overall thoughts and then the traditional star rating. I know the four of us did it on the normal podcast, but let's just reiterate it for those who haven't heard.
Already forgotten what gave it on the podcast.
5.
I don't think I did, did I?
No,
Two I gave it.
Anything else you want?
I thought it was. Yeah, I'm probably giving it a bad impression. I thought it was a good film in itself. It wasn't bad, and I didn't come out thinking, "Oh, it's a waste of 2 hours of my life." But I expected more from it. So yeah, I'd still stick with my 2.5 to 2-star rating. I wouldn't give it much more than that.
Okay. 4 out of 5, sorry. 4 out of 5. No, I think it was a really good adventure film in the spirit of Star Wars. I cared about Jyn Erso and what happened to her. The fact that everyone dies was a complete shock. And I really loved the fact, actually, that it went literally straight into A New Hope. After that, I didn't expect that either. But yeah, the couple of negatives we've already talked about, the CGI characters, the faces, and all that. But no, in general, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I've spoken more negatively than positively. I did enjoy it as a film. I would probably give it somewhere between 3.5 and a 4. I don't think it was a bad film at all. I just think I wanted more. I expected more. I didn't get it.
Which one are you going to go for? Because I'm going to try and work out an average at the end of it.
Oh, okay, Masters. I'll give it 4.
I didn't expect that!
I said between 3.5 and 4. So
I
why
think you
did I
gave it
expect
3
4?
earlier, didn't you? On the other
No,
podcast?
I didn't give it
You
a
know?
good start.
Oh, right.
I said 3.
Need more Supers and Skylines.
Fair.
Given the fact that you've given it 4 and I enjoyed the film and I gave it 3 earlier, I'm probably going to have to give it 4.
No, let me just qualify then. I give it a 4 because as a standalone film, like I said,
Well,
I
surely
didn't sit
that's
there
the
and
way
not
you
like
should.
it. No, but there was something about it that was just, like I said, like Adam said, there was something about it that wasn't right. But
It's a
I
great
acknowledge
film.
that as far as the production goes, it had a good story. It was CGI was great. The action was great. It, there was just something missing for me.
Okay, Can I just say quickly, as if,
No, you've given your star.
if I
You're
wasn't
not tearing into the film.
if I wasn't a Star Wars fan,
Well, I like.
as a film, a standalone film, 4, because it was a good film and it is a good watch.
But surely that's how you should base a film.
No, because
Even one that's got had
because
things before it.
I'm a
and-
Star Wars fan and I like Star Wars. So in terms of the universe, 2.5.
Carl.
Well, I'll have to give it 4 as well. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed a lot of the
Three,
characters.
can't
Well,
justify
you know, you've given it 4, so I'm going to have to give it 4 because I enjoyed it more than you did. That's how I'm
So,
justifying
so
it.
you should give it a 5, isn't it?
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
True.
3.5 then. I don't know.
That's good, actually. No, that's good because we got 2 halves. That makes it
Makes it easy for Chris.
3 3/4.
It's not Harry Potter.
There's no way that was better than Fast and Furious 7.
It was so much better.
Christ.
It was so much better.
Well,
than
you
that.
can't beat Vin Diesel on The Rock. Trust me.
Your 2.5 rating is just discredited immediately upon comparing it to the Fast series. So go on, sorry, Carl. You're going to go 3.5.
Yes.
Anything else you want to add?
No.
Chris, maybe
been ruined
explain
now.
my 5-star films
So, okay,
are like
let's-
Commando, Die Hard,
Commando's
Fast and the Furious.
2.5, 6.5, 10.5 surprisingly, and 3.5. That's 14. I'm going to give it 4 stars. If right at the point, I liked it a lot more than James, I think, in terms of having less holes in it. But no, I'll pretty much echo what Gaz said. I think not knowing much helped. I will say the reviews were slightly too high in terms of like critics' reviews, because I saw a lot of Total Film, a bit similar to IGN as you referenced. That's my sort of staple. And they give it 5 stars, and they don't give many films 5 stars.
Okay, so
I
you've
wouldn't
got
go that far.
18
So we've got
Divided-
18. Divided
yeah,
by
so
it's
9.
pretty much 3.6.
minus
So
Yoda.
Did you say 18 divided by?
No,
9?
18. Half of 18 is 9. Half 18 is
Where'd
9.
you get half?
What's
No,
why are you
sorry.
doing the half thing?
What
No,
are you
there's
half?
5
Because
of
we're
us.
at 10 then,
No,
weren't
there's 5 of us. It's
Five is-
3.6 is
it's
the
already
average.
had
Okay.
5.
Which
So-
will round up to 4.
So minus Yoda, we're looking at least 1.4.
What?
There's no Yoda?
You're listening to Adam's Mathematics.
Like maths tutoring for children. Adam is available.
Well, everything divided by Yoda is like lower.
Everything divided by Yoda is 1.4.
Can I just say, Adam, you must unlearn what you've learned. 'Cause it's just...
Like, everyone knows everything divided by Yoda is lower. Everyone knows that.
Anyway, Chris,
Before we
what is
sign
our
up-
number?
before we
18 divided
sign
by
up-
5 is...
3.6, I
There we
think.
go.
Yeah. Can we do, before I sign
Minus
off,
Yoda.
can I just ask James to do the honours with reference to all the
No,
social
it's your
media?
job, you're
things? I
those.
don't know them at Big Boss Battle Network or something.
That's
I
not
don't-
even the name of the
I
show.
know, I'm jesting. Go on.
It's bossbattlenetwork@gmail.com if you want to email us,
Thank
or
you.
bossbattle.net. No, bossbattlenet on Twitter if you want to tweet us.
There we go.
You're welcome.
See, I
Learn
didn't
it
even
for
move my
next time.
lips.
Or you're not hosting again.
In that case, I'm not learning it.
That many might come to me then.
Yeah, but all it leaves us to say is thank you very much for listening. You've got the patient of the saint, and it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from Adam.
Rest in peace, Carrie. Goodbye from me.
Yeah, rest in
Nice
peace.
touch.
Goodbye
Yeah.
from me.
Good riddance 2016. Goodbye from me.
Just remember, divide by Yoda.
And look out for podcast number
9.
9,
Yeah.
which will be in the new year. So yeah, happy new year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Happy New Year.